Greetings, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. I wanted to start a little bit early just to say hello to everybody. I see Man of Letters, hi Keith, and I see Moldavite 2020 Aurora. Thank you for joining me, and Sean, Magavan. So tonight is going to be, I think, a really great night to discuss some of the channelings from another woman. And she created this beautiful art book, and I'm going to go into it. And, out of respect for her, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I did pick out some parts that I thought were really important. And I think that this book needs to have another place on the internet than just to be able to buy it on Amazon. So I hope the author respects my intentions to help her put forward these messages, because I think that they're really important and they're in alignment with Tolkien. They're in alignment with many of the things that you may feel in your soul about nature and about the environment and where mankind is going and how humanity can get better emotionally, physically. In many ways, nature is the answer, and it is the key. And it is something that advanced aliens have been telling humanity for a long time, as are messages from our higher selves in a very deep way, because aliens on a multidimensional level represent our future selves. We must always remember that whenever we think about these advanced beings, that they're not somewhere that's unattainable to us, but they are a reflection of something that's in with all of us. And they are simply just reminding us of that. So I am really excited to talk about this. This book is interesting. It has kind of a neat story behind it because it's hard to find. I'll show you the cover here. And if you're not looking for that actual specific title, then you probably won't find it. But I found it when I was going through my awakening and putting the puzzle pieces together, and I was looking specifically for Pleiadians and Elves and seeing what the correlations were, because I noticed within me that I felt like I resonated a lot with the Pleiadians and I resonated a lot with the Elves. So I tried to find the connections early on. And I stumbled across a website that talked about this book. And it's kind of an obscure website, so it's not something that's easily found. But I wanted to read to you what I did see in the title. Author Razi Ebadi Blakley, or Blakley, encourages readers to become Mother Earth's valiant guardians. And then it showed a picture of this book, and it showed where I can get the book. So then I found out that I can find copies on Amazon, and I put the links in the description for you all. So if you want to buy it, it is $50, and it includes many of her paintings. And I think that it's well worth the price, especially if you're somebody that just enjoys taking that little trip into another realm. And I really love the title, especially World Within Our Own. So I'm going to start off and just read you a little bit about the author. Razi Ebadi Blakley was born in Southwest Asia. She started to sketch and draw from a very young age, and her art has always been her passion. As a child, she spent most of her time daydreaming with her imaginary friends and using that to fuel her art. By the age 14, she started to travel the globe, learning to live in different regions of the planet. Her thirst for spiritual knowledge allowed her to embrace various schools of thought as she submerged herself in different cultures, learning different languages and emotionally maturing with each one. She lived in South America for many years, working for a mining company as international logistic coordinator and seeing the impact of industrialization on societies, the irreparable damage brought upon the environment, the ruthless deforestation of Amazon jungle, and the contamination of lakes and rivers due to misuse of harmful chemicals and mercury. She learned the art of deep meditation, yoga, Tai Chi, Taekwondo, therapy through healing hands like Reiki, and in 1993 she became an amateur astronomer looking towards the stars, seeking for answers to understand the existence of the human race. She has also recorded various meditation CDs, among which are Learning to Meditate, Connecting with the Creator, Law of Forgiveness, Heal Our Planet, Spirit of Health, and Guardian Angels. She's won various art competitions, displayed her art in galleries around the world, working with oils, pencils, and watercolors. And this book started as a fantasy artwork project, and it developed into a beautiful story about an amazing race that came to the planet Earth and has lived here in secret, helping us to understand who we are and who we have become, and trying to teach us to take ownership for our own emotions, thoughts, and actions, not as a single culture, but a race living on the surface of this beautiful planet, struggling to survive. So that was her beginning. And the reason why I think I came across her book was because it was during the time when I made my channel, and I started to feel a call that humans were being called to become more Earth guardians, more conscious and aware of the Earth. And so when I looked up Earth guardians, Pleiadians, and elves, because the Pleiadians' messages have been very focused on nature, this is when those puzzle pieces started to be put together, and I found her book. So here's the intro. Since my early youth, I always looked for answers regarding human behavior and spirituality, joined many theological schools, and learned different ways of spirituality through the eyes and hearts of many different ethnicities. My wild, adventurous spirit took me to amazing countries where I matured emotionally and understood we are all the same soul, spread through the earth in different outfits we call civilizations and cultures. While living in South America, I traveled to Gran Sanbana, located in the southeastern part of Venezuela. 6,800 miles of paradise with the most unusual landscape, including rivers, vast deep valleys, impassable forests and breathtaking waterfalls, and diverse, unique vegetation and fauna not found anywhere else on the planet. I traveled to Gran Sabana 8 times in the 17 years I lived there, exploring and enjoying the peace and the quiet that is unspoiled by modern world. Cars can only take you to certain points, and then rest is trail, hill, and mountains to climb. In one of my trips to Gran Sabana, I decided to climb one of the ancient massifs, eroded tabular forms called tepuis. I wanted to climb Ramnia Tepui, I guess that's the name, 9,100 feet high, and had trained for months to be able to endure the 7-day trip. 2 days to climb, 3 days of stay on top of the Tepui, and 2 days to come back to the nearest small village where I had parked my car. Excuse me if I'm not saying this correctly here. After being on the road for 8 hours, I arrived in the late afternoon to a small village called Paratipui, where the native South American Indians called Pimams lived. Life is very simplistic in that corner of the universe. There is no electric power, and they live in small houses made of mud, palm trees, and wood, and everything they need is provided by the forest and rivers around them. Their source of water is the fresh springs roaring out of the mountains that run through 924 miles of savanna. The Pimams are very short and thin with straight black hair and sunburned skins. They love to paint their skin and use body piercing made from wood. Most of them speak only their own dialect, and very few speak some Spanish. After arriving, I asked the natives where would be the best place to camp out. There were about 20 small houses constructed in a circular pattern in this small village, and the center was where I was offered and permitted to stay. I set out my small tent in the center of the village, building a small fire to heat up my canned food, and the Pimam natives were extremely friendly, and a handful of them joined me around my small campfire as the sun was setting. A young native shaman named Capan sat next to me with a beautiful smile on his face, which brought me a little peace of mind since I was so outside my elements. We both spoke a little Spanish, and I offered him some money to accompany me on my trip. He told me he had no need for money, but the spirits had told him I was coming, and he would accompany me anyway. His face turned serious for a moment, and he said he could only accompany me to the base of the Tepui since the giants did not like visitors. I looked at him with surprise and asked, "What giants?" "The luminous giants that appear on top of the mountain, of course." I guess he read my expression because he repeated, "Yes, the giants that come and go, but very few people have seen them." I smiled politely and attributed the comment to superstitions, legends, native tales, and the fact that everyone was about 4 feet tall. I was grateful to have found a guide to accompany me on my adventure, since I had a 2-day walk to the mountain and had no idea how to get there, especially having to cross 2 dangerous rivers. Catan agreed to meet me early morning at my tent, and he was there, bright and early. He had a beautiful pendant on his neck. It was made of some type of crystal and metallic element with some writing on it. And when I asked him about it, he just smiled and said it was a gift that was passed down to him from his ancestors. The pathway to Ramia was absolutely beautiful, but the heat was taking its toll on me after 5 hours of walking up and down rolling hills. Catan offered to carry part of my load on his back since he only had a small rolled fabric on his back and supply for his trip. And as we walked, he taught me some survival skills, such as what insect and plants were good to eat, just in case I ran out of food. And he again spoke of the giants with a concerned expression on his face and asked me not to climb, but I assured him I was going to be fine. He said that the giants would come and go as they pleased, and no native had set foot on Ramia. We crossed the first river with ease, but Catan warned me about the Catan River coming up the next day, which was vigorous and dangerous in rainy season. I could see the beautiful Tepui from afar, and it seemed to be close, but the more we walked, the farther it got. We arrived exhausted for the Catan River and settled for the night. My native companions starting a fire with some dry pieces of wood and making it seem so easy. After having my small meal, I lay on my sleeping bag and looked to the stars. There was not a single cloud in the sky as the stars shined like glowing patterns in the heavens. For the first time in my life, I could see the last arm of the Milky Way. Galaxy stretched and extended across the sky. The sound of the Catan River had a calming effect, and Catan lay by the fire and went to sleep as I dozed away in a sweet, fatigued sleep. Yes, if any of you have ever seen the Milky Way and the stars, if you really have gone to these places where there's no light. Like one time I went to South Africa and I actually stayed in a place called Pilanesberg, and it is an animal reserve that was made out of a natural meteorite crash millions of years ago. And all the animals are inside of the cavern that was where the meteorite hit. And so that's where they preserve some of these endangered species. And I got a chance to stay there overnight. It's called the Lion's Den, and it was a tree house. And I stayed with my aunt, and it was an amazing experience because I've never before been able to see the stars that clearly. I always lived in the city, and the light pollution around cities, or even in the suburbs too, or on the outskirts of cities, is still bad. You have to go to these places. At some point in your life, travel to a place where there is no civilization around, or it is small villages, and it's known to be a place where you can see the stars very clearly. If you can do that once in your lifetime, it is an amazing experience. So I understand what she experienced here. I dreamt of a very tall figure dressed in a white cloth walking towards me, and he was surrounded by a luminous white light. And as he got closer, he called out my name again and again. I woke up abruptly, completely out of breath, and saw Catan sitting by the fire staring at me. "They are here. They are here for you. So this is not a dream. She had the dream in a vision of this, and then she woke up, and then she saw that her guide, or the native guide, was saying, okay, the giants are ready to speak to you. So she said, I could not get back to sleep. And so the dream was so real that I could see his angelic face. I don't know how long I was awake before I fell back to sleep and woke up by the early dawn breeze. Catan was standing by the river and turned to look at me, and came back and covered the ashes of the campfire with rocks. Neither of us spoke of the night before, and I still could not explain what I thought had happened. Catan looked at me and said, there is rain in the air, and we need to cross the river promptly. The Kukanan River was very rough, and I was holding a 35-pound backpack and everything I had on top of my head. I knew that staying dry was crucial for survival in that environment, since the weather can change drastically and turn cold. So I made sure to keep my pack with my spare clothes dry. Trying to cross a violent river was quite an ordeal. The river was up to my chest, and Catan was carrying my camping gears and helping me not lose my balance. He did very well, considering the water was up to his neck and was carrying part of my load. My escort did not speak much for the rest of our journey, and as we got closer to the Tepui, the trail got rough and rockier, and we had walked for 7 hours, and I was absolutely worn out as we arrived at the base of the Roramia in the early afternoon. And as soon as we set camp and ate our dinner, it began to rain, and Catan made himself a lean-to on top of a canopy and hung a small hammock and went to sleep. Next to Roramia Tepui was the Kukanan Tepui, which was more massive and intimidating than anything I had ever seen. The natives called them the Twin Sister Mountains. With no moon in the sky and heavy rain on its way, it became pitch dark quickly. My tent began moving with the wind and pouring rain, and I could not get much sleep that night. I was excited and anxious at the same time. This place was absolutely amazing. It seemed as if time had stopped and I had gone back thousands of years. You could see nothing but luscious green savanna, no buildings, no cars, nothing but Mother Nature in her full primitive state of beauty and glory. Before sunrise, I heard noises outside my tent as Catan made a fire. There were very few clouds in the sky over the Grand Sabana, and the temperature had dropped considerably. The air was absolutely clean and had wonderful smells as I looked up and saw the top of the Roramia Tepui. It was covered with a dense fog that moved quickly, and I felt like an insignificant ant looking up at an unapproachable giant. As we made a light breakfast, the sun rose and the fog began to dissipate. We began breaking camp and packing our gear for the day's hike. I was looking forward to another day of enjoying the beauty surrounding me when Catan came to me abruptly with his pack settled on his back. This is as far as I can go. From here, you must make the trek on your own. I was stunned to hear he was leaving me in the midst of the rainforest, and began to insist that he continue with me when he stopped me. You must wear this from now on. And he took the beautiful pendant from his neck and gently placed it over his head. I have to show you this pendant. It's just gorgeous. Some of her artwork is really beautiful. I won't show all of it out of respect for her, but I'll show some of the pictures. I cannot tell you everything you will experience, but this will protect you. When the crystal begins to glow, you will know that the giants are near. I only know that you must not fear them because they will not harm you. I was only meant to bring you this far, and they will lead you to where you should go. I was at loss for words as I looked at the young native. I don't understand, Catan. What are you talking about? He turned from me, bowed respectfully to the Tepui, and spoke a prayer of safety. And Catan rose from his bow and looked at me sincerely. You must believe in the Tepui and the forest. And with that, he turned and began to travel back the path that he had come from the previous day. I stood pondering what had just happened and contemplating what Catan had said. In all my travels and spiritual quests, I had never been forced to test my own faith or the belief of others. I realized that this journey was something different and that I needed to believe and have faith. Catan said I would be guided, and so I decided to let go of my fear and just believe. I started my journey toward the foot of the mountain. The forest was smelling of fresh herbs from the rain, but was very muddy and slippery. It took me 2 hours to arrive to the foot of the tepui, and I had never seen anything like it. The tepui rose like a wall straight up until it disappeared into the clouds. And Catan had told me that there was a narrow pathway hidden by the luscious vegetation that zigzagged to the top of the tepui. I began searching the base for one such path and was amazed how quickly I found one. After 4 hours of climbing to about 4,500 feet, I looked back and began to fear my choice. The sheer drop I saw when I looked back made me realize how small and vulnerable I was. The fear I felt lasted only a moment before a sense of calm and peace washed over me. And re-energized, I continued my climb, and after what seemed like a brief period, I was on top. Finding a suitable cave now, I made a camp for the night. Catan had tied a bundle of kindling to the bottom of my pack, and using that and some of the dead wood nearby, I made a cozy fire for myself. The temperature had dropped, so I pulled a sweater from my pack as I settled down to begin preparing dinner. The warm soup comforted my body and began to relax me more from the day's trek, and I pulled my boots off to discover my feet had blistered from all the hiking and were in desperate need for some care. After setting up my tent and looking after my feet, I listened to the blowing wind and far-off streams. I gazed at the moon above and the surrounding rock formations and began to think of the day that had passed. I suddenly remembered the crystal that Catan had placed around my neck and the strange things he had told me. I looked at it in the firelight and noticed the heat emitting from it. Why was it warm? Why had he given it to me, and what was this strange writing on it? It looked nothing like I had seen in all my travels and language studies. I realized I was too tired to consider this now, and crawled into my tent and zipped myself into my sleeping bag. The physical drain of the day overcame me, and I quickly fell asleep. I don't know how long I was sleeping before a light woke me up. I was disoriented and confused at first until I realized the crystal pendant around my neck was glowing in the dark, and there was light outside my tent. My heart started to race, and at first I thought there must be other campers who had just arrived. I called out to see who was there and heard a soft male voice that was rather familiar and called me out by my name. Now completely alarmed, I opened the zipper of my tent and found a majestic, luminous figure standing a few feet away. He was about 7 feet tall, with long, light blue hair, flawless skin, and mesmerizingly gentle, large, almond-shaped blue eyes. He was dressed in a white tunic and was smiling directly at me. I jumped out of my tent, almost lost my balance, and realized there was another person a few feet behind him, not as tall, with long dark hair and a serene face. They were very muscular and strong and were glowing like a star. "My name is Catan, and this is Darpak. We have been waiting for you." "Waiting for me? Well, who are you?" I said. I was confused and thought I may be dreaming again. My mind was racing 1,000,000 miles an hour, and all I could remember was Capan's words. "Please don't go. The giants are there." I was confused by his words, but not afraid. Their presence brought so much peace and serenity that I heard his voice in my head, telling me that I had nothing to worry about and they would not harm me. I remembered his face. He was the man in my dream from the night before. I asked him, "How did you know my name? And what did you mean by saying you were waiting for me? How did you get up here?" Catan said they needed someone to tell their story, and explained that they were elves and had come to Earth thousands of years ago and had evolved to different races, and it was time for humanity to learn about them and what role they had played in our lives. Catan told me I was chosen for the purity of my heart and soul, and I had the artistic talent that they needed. They wanted me to paint them for the whole world to see, and said they were time and space travelers and could show up in any space and time in their physical body. I explained that I was not a writer and there were so many people more qualified than me, and they both smiled at me, and Catan said, "But you are the one we chose for this task." I could not wrap my head around it and just sat there looking at them in disbelief. I felt honored and confused at the same time. I had so many questions, and Catan read my mind and said, We are here to answer them. We talked all night, and I had so many questions, and they lovingly answered them all. By sunrise, I was filled with energy and exhaustion at the same time. They walked me to the edge of the tepui, and we looked at the sun coming up. Catan looked at me seriously. This planet is a gift of life and opportunity for evolution. But humanity is losing the battle to its own ego and greed by not considering that every living thing has its purpose and place here on Earth, and how we are destroying its natural resources and losing the sense of balance and dignity in the process. He told me to go to rest and that they would be back later to continue educating me in all that they had to share. Darpak made me an ointment and said to rub the bottom and sides of my feet that were blistered by the hiking. I went back to my tent and rubbed some of the ointment on my blisters. It alleviated the burning sensation immediately. I still could not believe all that I had heard that night, and before I could think of anything else, I fell into a deep sleep and dreamt of dragons, underwater creatures, and amazing things I had never seen before. I don't remember how long I was asleep. I opened my eyes thinking it was all a dream, sat up in my tent, and saw my glowing pendant as Catan and Darpak arrived to my cave. I laughed and cried at the same time and looked at them, still in disbelief. You are real, and I wasn't dreaming all of that. Their smile brought me so much peace and tranquility. How did you like the images you had while you were asleep? Amazing, I said. Darpak said, we will communicate through your dreams and meditation to guide you to finish our story. I realized all the blisters from the bottom of my feet had vanished and asked Darpak, what was in that ointment you gave me? He smiled and said, it is the healing power of herb and plant Mother Nature has set beneath our feet that we are so dearly trying to protect. I spent 3 unbelievable days on top of Roermia Tepui and did not want to leave this amazing paradise. Catan assured me that this was not our last visit, and we would see each other again, and I needed to practice the art of meditation so I could communicate with them at will. I was more energized than ever in my life. I packed the last of my gear and headed down the mountain as I was trying to process all the information they had given me. It took me 7 hours to reach the base where I had camped before, and to my great surprise, Catan was waiting for me with fruits and bread. He already had a camp and a fire set. What are you doing here? And he smiled and he said he knew I was coming and wanted to accompany me back safe and sound. You are glowing, just like them. I did not share all that I had seen and experienced on top of the tepui with Catan, but I did talk to him about my new mission and the challenge that was set before me. Upon my return to the city, I started to write, draw, and paint all the images that came to me from Catan and Darpak. I learned to meditate and enter into profound levels of consciousness where I practiced communicating with these 2 amazing and angelical beings. It took 5 years to complete this story and this artwork. Here it is in your hands. Believe what you like and take a piece of their wisdom with you wherever you go. So that was how she came across either a projected vision from them, or they actually are living amongst us. As I've talked about before, that there has been some other people that have said that they have come across the Pleiadians in Canada. An author wrote a book about them, and now we have South America, and of course, the Swiss Alps with Billy Meyer. So not only have they visited humanity, but they have lived among us, and they also live underground as well, from what David Wilcock and many others have talked about. So they are among us, and many of us are deeply connected to them, and you may feel their energy within you. So I'm just going to read you just a few more things about them. The origin part was interesting here. The origin of the elves is rather uncertain. They seldom talk about it, but I heard Darpak, who is one of the oldest living elves, say, we came from the stars. The legend whispered the tale of an advanced civilization brought to Earth and said that elves are the result of interracial blend of humans and other extraterrestrial entities. He spoke of a 7-star solar system, the Pleiades, in our own galaxy, the Milky Way, and how they were forced to abandon their peaceful planet before it was destroyed by a meteor. One of the most remarkable qualities of the elves is their power to adapt to their surroundings and to mutate and metamorph their bodies to evolve and to fit their own needs. And I was talking about that in the Heritage. So, this is the first time that I'm actually reading this with you. So this is really exciting for me to go through this with you, to see how it really aligns to everything that I have intuitively felt about the elves and fairies and how they are able to adjust themselves, because they're at that really higher level of consciousness where there's no limitations. And it's very much how Semyase talked about the secret to being able to time travel, being able to do all these things, such as change your body at will or time travel and teleport, is a feeling of timelessness and spacelessness. And it's more than a feeling. It comes through a actual knowledge, a knowing. So humanity is going to get to that place when science can start to prove more of the power of the mind. And that is where we are heading. So the studies of quantum physics is very good for this, because this is what's going to unlock these psychic powers within us and allow us to get to these places where we can change our bodies at will and time travel one day and teleport ourselves. And this is where humanity can head. It is a possible future, and it is one that absolutely will occur for many of us that have our focus on that type of timeline for humanity and feel it within our heart, because you have the blueprint, and the DNA blueprint really is memories. It's memories that is within our DNA. And once you unlock those DNAs and you activate them, you actually unlock and release old memories. And then you remember and you reawaken to the abilities. And this is why these beings come and to give these messages to us, so that we can get to the same place. The very first elves arrived in the Amazon jungles and built Alpha Hema Avani, which means the little golden earth, the motherland, and where all elves started before moving to different regions of our globe to divide into multiple subspecies. These pioneers became the Nama Wood Elves. So this is very interesting that she's saying the first elves they arrived in the Amazon jungles. And that makes sense because Billy Meyer was contacted by Semyase in the 70s, and early in the 40s when he was born, he received a vision as a child that he was going to become kind of the next messenger for the Pleiades, so that they could, help to give these messages to humanity and remind humanity what is vital, what's important for their survival, and how they can evolve. But it has been known in Mayan culture, in the Aztec culture, in the Native Americans of South America, that the star people, that the people of the stars, that they have been called, have been from the Pleiades. And so there's many legends and many connections to the Pleiades, and it's kind of part of where they arrived first, and then they tried to help those cultures of early humans and teach them the ways, and then it spread to other parts as well. There also is indication that they also were part of the Tua Dedan in Ireland, and then they went to ancient Egypt for a little bit and maybe had some influence there, and then they were in the Swiss Alps. And so, as she says, that they began moving to different regions, but they started originally, the Pleiadians started originally in the Amazon jungles. And then they started to move around to different parts of the globe. And they divided into multiple subspecies, the Nama Wood Elves, and then we'll get into the Water Elves. Some of the elves migrated and they mutated themselves to live in the oceans of our planet and became the Nala Elves from that subspecies. A few preferred the fresh waters of lakes and rivers and became the Nalinas, and others migrated closer to the volcanoes and the mountains, and they are the Nachikatas, the Lords of the Flame. Last but not the least is the Asha Elves that live in the bone-chilling regions of North and South Poles. So this is more the Norwegian areas. They are the shamans and the interdimensional gatekeepers of the planet Earth and have helped all subspecies of elves for millennia. So they are the ones that might have influenced some of the, the Norse legends, and we'll get into the Ice Elves in a bit. But the Nama Wood Elves, I will give you, I think, a good look into what the Nama Wood Elves are. Planet Earth, the beautiful blue marble suspended in time and space, offered a perfect shelter for the first elves arriving here on Earth. They became the Nama Wood Elves. The Amazon jungle provided and offered all that was needed to survive and live peacefully, and the planet where the elves came from had similar ecosystems to ours, but they needed to unite their genetic makeup with the humans in order to completely adapt to Earth, and this explains their resemblance to our own race. Alpha Hema Avani is the city that blends perfectly with Mother Nature. Their home and habitat do not disturb the peaceful integrity of the forest. Since they have been around for thousands of years, their advanced cultures has touched some of our own civilizations like the Egyptians, the Aztecs, the Incas, and the Mayans. Elves do love the planet Earth and consider it their home, but the high levels of the contamination and deforestation has forced many to transcend to higher frequency level dimensions or find other Earth-like planets. They have been traveling back and forth for centuries, and a great part of their civilization has left the Earth for a better place and will not return. So now, and that's kind of what I was feeling in me, is that in many ways the elves are doing exactly what Tolkien talked about. The elves are fading, but with their fading away and not here anymore, or at least they are not in a large group anymore on Earth, it is the time of the humans to take up their teachings, to learn all that they have showed us and that they have taught us for all of these ages, and also opening up a part of yourself that has a special connection to them. And then this is where we become the next Earth Guardians. So these elves are leaving the planet, or they have left already. And there might be only a very few handful of them maybe lingering still to pass on their messages. But Tolkien's vision of the elves leaving Middle Earth was very true. It is a time of the humans now. It is up to everyone on Earth to awaken, because the elves are moving into what they consider the light bodies. So they are not going to be seen, and they will be experiencing other versions of themselves, but they're no longer going to be in a physical world or a physical experience. They're moving on to the light body experience. And many of us are star seeds from these elves or other types of elves. And there are many types of subspecies. So if you don't quite resonate with these, there's other types of elves out there. But I did want to show you some of the elves that she was talking about that she channeled. So the elven physique of the Nama Wood Elves. The elves are one of the most stunning creatures that have ever walked the earth. Many people in the past have thought elves to be short and stocky and fat, and this is not only inaccurate, but far from reality. This amazing race is extremely tall, slender, but athletic, graceful, and has a well-balanced physique. And I would say that she's talking more about like the Germanic elves and the elves that have been talked about before in the past. And I would say that there is a variety of fae. So the type of fae that she channeled, that she really focused on, were this particular type. So I wouldn't say that they don't exist in other shapes, because I know intuitively that they do. That Fae has too much variety. I mean, it's almost like an infinite perspective of what a fairy can look like in terms of all the different types of forms that a Fae can take. But she focused on this particular one, that this amazing race in particular is extremely tall, slender, athletic, and graceful, and has a well-balanced physique. So these are the ones that came from the Pleiades. And this makes sense because whenever a Pleiadian is ever channeled, they're extremely tall, very thin, elfin-looking, often blonde, or often maybe different colored hair. I often see them with silver hair. And there is an element of a kind of a pattern that definitely you see. And it has to do with their diet. Pleiadians mostly are vegetarians. So, and not necessarily vegans, because there has been messages where they work in harmony with animals. So they don't have the same kind of factorization, but they have more of the free range symbiotic relationship. So they're vegetarians, and I'll talk more about that here. But one of the most interesting features of an elf is their eyes. Elves have very striking almond-shaped eyes. The strength of their soul, the gentleness of their heart, and the power of their wisdom are reflected in their gaze. Now, this I said in the fairy heritage video, the almond-shaped eyes is very interesting because it is a mutation from the normal chimpanzee eyes, the ancestor of the ape that humans were genetically evolved and mutated from. The almond-shaped eyes has more of a slant, so it has more of a cat-like type of look to it. And so she's definitely kind of going right into that idea of more of that cat-like feline look. The strength of their soul, the gentleness of their heart, and the power of their wisdom are reflected in their gaze. Most humans cannot hold the gaze of an elf. Looking into the eyes of an elf is like looking into another dimension or universe. They have such powerful souls that it's a humbling experience to be in their presence. Blue eyes are the most common color in elves, but you can also see bright green, deep purple, brown, or light honey, and a hazel as well. As far as their eyesight is concerned, the elves can not only see for miles, but can also see in total darkness. Most Nama wood elves are blonde or red-headed. Both male and females carry their hair long, and females tend to adorn their hair with simple flowers. So these are the wood elves. And there seems to be a little bit of that Lyran ancestry as well, because the Lyrans, I know that they were kind of known for being the red-headed giants, and they were part of the mammalian genetic modification of humans. And so they are those lion feline type of humanoids. And so the redhead, it's all interconnecting. Young males let their hair grow to shoulder length, but elder males carry them longer, and both male and female genders possess extraordinarily soft skin, but the female skin is known to be softer than a rose petal. And even though the elves are very tall, they are extremely light and agile on their feet. It is almost impossible to outrun an elf, and when they run, it seems as if they are shifting themselves forward without even touching the ground. Elves do have slightly pointy ears, and they are capable of hearing the smallest sound made in the forest. Their keen sense of hearing allows them to distinguish the difference between a lion's and a leopard's footstep. Another elven attribute is the resistance to temperature. The extreme heat and cold does not affect the elf's biological stability. It's like they have an internal thermostat that adjusts to the environment without changing their own body temperature. One of the most impressive physical characteristics of the elves is their immunity system. Ordinary diseases and illnesses do not distress their biological structure. Genetically, they are more resistant than us. It's very easy for a human to fall in love with the remarkable angelic beauty of an elf, but the history of the elf culture does not hold any memory of an elf ever considering a human as a life partner, since elves' longevity allows them to live for a few thousand years. Now, that doesn't mean that they haven't mated with them. And I just wanted to put that out there, that there has been that type type of mingling, but possibly not long-term marriages or relationships. But like I said, this can be something within your family that is kind of an embarrassment or something that can be hidden, especially those that it happened a long time ago and at a time when maybe that type of relationship was inappropriate to have a romance with a forest maiden or a forest gentleman that you just happened to meet, or a stranger that didn't tell you where they came from or where they're from. But that did happen. These amazing beings are peaceful, they're soft-spoken, pure-hearted, and their presence illuminates any room. The Elven language is called the Kirama, and it's soft and pleasant to the ear, and their alphabet has 50 letters, and some of these even have meanings of their own. So she goes into some of that. The elves speak every language ever spoken by humans, and they also have the capacity of communicating with animals of all species. The elves' demeanor. Elves are one of the most relaxed and fun-loving folks on earth. They are witty, light-hearted, good-humored, and playful as children. They're known for their patience and serenity and never lose their temper. For an elf, anger is a lack of control and comprehension, and rage is considered a primitive instinct and uncivilized behavior. The words jealousy and envy do not exist among elves, and the conviction of revenge has never agreed with the elvish demeanor. That's true. Like, I know for me as an elven soul, I have never, ever believed in revenge. Like, it just is something that I've never believed in. I just don't see it as ever a wise choice because it keeps the cycle going. Because ultimately the goal is to bring peace and compromise forward so that you don't experience so much stress between you and another soul that has some kind of disagreement. But revenge is never ending that war. And actually it keeps it going. And revenge is the number one reason why we have gang violence and war. Number one reason. It's a revengeful spirit. And what happens with that is that it keeps a loop, a time loop open, and it never gets fully closed until one of the souls take a chance to actually be the bigger person and reach some form of compromise and surrender. And revenge is something I've never believed in, so that's really interesting. Their action, here it is. This one's interesting here. Since they believe in the decree of karma and dharma, any action, thought, or expression generates an energy that attracts the same sequence of force from the universe and brings it back to its creator. This action could be positive or negative. It will benefit or create misfortune for the individual. Therefore, elves' demeanor is peaceful and very easygoing. The Elven Society. The elders are the principal leaders, organizers, and caretaker of the Elvish Society, but everyone is involved in any decision that needs to be made. Elves do not have specific social roles, and everyone helps and does whatever is needed. In addition to individual awareness, they all possess collective consciousness. Whatever affects one affects all, and therefore all decisions are made as a group regardless of the age. However, elders do play a big role in the Elvish Society, and their opinions and wisdom are greatly considered and appreciated. And then I wanted to read this next part here on, we could talk about there's stuff about marriage and the birth of child, but I'm not going to read all of that. I do have to respect her, but I think this is important here. The Elvish diet and elven longevity. Elves are entirely vegetarians, and their diets consist of fruits, vegetables, nuts, beans, mushrooms, and some dairy products, and different types of breads. They grow most of their own fruits and vegetables. Their great knowledge of nature has allowed them to cultivate more efficiently and obtain quicker harvest. It takes the elves 1/3 of time to grow and cultivate anything without destroying the environment in the process. They eat exactly what their body requires and does not suffer from cravings as we do. This awareness allows them to consume less food but nourish themselves more efficiently. And that's something that just will naturally happen. Many of you may have experiences that, as you're going through your awakening and you're getting kind of fifth dimensional symptoms and you're looking around the world and you're seeing the world in a different perspective, those types of food cravings and physical pleasures and those types of cravings that sometimes call to you, such as I talked about in my other video too, on the idea of sex and spirituality, anything that has to do with the senses, you're not controlled by them because your mind is in control. It's no longer the cravings that you have, but your higher consciousness is engaged. So it makes sense that the elves would not, sit there and just eat a whole bag of chips and without any kind of conscious awareness. But that can happen to us, especially if we look to food as a source of like emotional comfort, which a lot of times that can happen. So elves see it as strictly more energy, and they know efficiently what to give their body enough of. Elven music. Elvish music is the most beautiful, soothing melody ever created. Their instruments are made of whatever nature has to offer and are complex to play. In the hands of the humans, these instruments sound like broken toys. However, in the talented hands of an elf, they create masterpieces of harmony and rhythm, having an effect that is almost healing to the soul, mind, heart, and body. And not all elves have musical talents and can sing, but like humans, each elf has a different aptitude and ability. But most elves are exposed to music from early childhood. However, one of the most beautiful sounds of the elves is what humans take for granted, the harmony of silence. According to the elves, humans have lost the ability to perceive sounds due to constant exposure to noise and chattering. Yes, noise pollution. It's an actual thing. It can truly distract you from some of the most beautiful sounds of nature, which is almost silence. And I think definitely that's something that we have lost too. The elven longevity and paranormal abilities. Most elves live well over 3,000 years. The elves do not lose their strength by their age, and there's no trace of wrinkles in their features until they are well over 2,000 years old. They are energetic and maintain themselves physically active throughout their lives. And since the wood elves are the caretakers of the forest, their energy becomes one with nature. We have lost 75% of our forest to mining and lodging industries. The shrinkage has affected elves and accelerated their aging process. They can feel the ache and suffering of every hacked tree. Although longevity is a blessing, the last few centuries have been very rough on them. The ecosystem of our planet has drastically changed, and not in a positive direction. They have seen the fertile and fragile forests of the world being diminished due to uncontrolled deforestations and careless fires. Humans have failed to reforest and replace what Mother Nature has so closely nurtured and guarded throughout time. The spirit of the planet breaks every time an old tree is cut. The elders are strong, wise, loving, serene, and patient. Unlike our society, they are greatly loved and respected, and their wisdom and insight are always welcomed by the younger generations. The elven paranormal abilities. Elves possess many paranormal powers and integrate them into their daily lives. Most elves have psychic power, which allows them to perceive information in the form of images and facts of past, present, or future. Many humans have this faculty, but are not trained to develop it properly. Everything that exists is surrounded by energy, and this energy is called the aura. Elves can see and analyze this energy. The colors and the intensity of the aura reflect the person's vitality, health, mood, etc. For example, if the person is lying, the color of their aura changes. For the same reason, you can never lie to an elf. They will know. The elves are gifted with the power of telepathy. This is the communication of messages or thoughts directly from one mind to another without use of ordinary words. Every action, word, or thought generates energy, and elves can identify this energy and capture the thought behind it. With this, they are capable of communicating from thousands of miles away, and there is no need to be in the visual range. There is also the interdimensional crossing, where the telepath can receive the thought waves from other dimensions, and only the older elves are skilled enough for this power. Teleportation is one of the most unique powers that is practiced only by very few elders or the Elvish community. They can travel through space, dimension, and time without interfering with natural order of history. It is absolutely a mind-boggling event to observe them in action. They don't just disappear. They start to fade away, and then there is nothing. Most elves have telekinetic power and can move objects with no effort. They can also reshape an object using the mind's energy, for instance, bending an arrow with their mind. It is the mind that dominates the matter. And I asked one of the elders if it took more effort to move heavier objects, and he smiled as if answering a child, and looked at me lovingly and responded, no. Some elves have mastered the art of levitation, and they meditate every day to connect and nourish from the universal energy. Some levitate while experiencing higher level of consciousness, but they can levitate at will at any time they need to. So this is where maybe some of the stories of fairies came from too. Maybe elves don't necessarily have wings, but they can levitate and they can float. And maybe that's where some of these visions of them in these jungles and in these forests, maybe people have seen them from afar levitating, and then that's where the stories of fairies came from too. You know, these flying spirits. I asked, where am I here? Some levitate while experiencing higher levels of consciousness, but they can levitate at any time they need to. You could be roaming, I just said this. You could be roaming the forest, and an elf can be observing you, suspended from the upper canopies in silence, and you will never know, or you may get a glimpse of them. The benefit of the levitation enables them to walk on the snow or the water without sinking. Now, this is exactly what Legolas was able to do in the book, The Fellowship of the Ring. It talks about they went through the snow and how Legolas was able to run on top of the snow without actually sinking down into the snow. So try that next time you have snow. Focus your mind and see if you could think of yourself light as a feather, light as a feather. Have you ever played that game? The reason why it works is because when you're focusing your thoughts on light as a feather, stiff as a board, and you have your fingers, you're able to sometimes lift up your friends. If everybody in that group is really focused on that thought and really believes that they can. So a lot of times teenagers and children can do it because they believe. Humans have a problem with belief as they get older. For some reason, belief suspends itself because adults seem to think that they are too old to believe in such stuff. And this is why children can see fairies and children can do certain things. And this is why some of the experiences that you've had paranormally happened when you might have been younger in age, because as we grow up and we're involved in this world and other adults, get in our mind and tell us that these things don't exist and that we should only believe in what we can see, that's when we start to lose these abilities. The most important ability, most powerful one you can have is a belief in yourself and a belief in these things. So that is really key. I just wanted to point out there. And one of the most unique paranormal powers of an elf is shape-shifting. Very few elves have this exceptional gift of metamorphosis, but they can change overall appearance of the biological entity to any animal or human. And this transformation typically is a short-term alteration. If they get injured being in another form, the injuries will reflect in both bodies. If you have ever been lost in a forest and a gentle-eyed wolf or an eagle has helped you find your way, you might have been guided by an elvish shapeshifter. So the idea of skin changers in Native American tales, this is maybe where it came from, the elves. So these are a little bit more about the water elves now. The water elf is a subspecies, and they are called the aquatic Nalina elves. The aquatic elves are also known as Nalina elves, the water elves. They are the subspecies of the Nama elves, and the elven race has divided into different genetic alterations, and they have evolved their way into the world's waters and rivers, extending their natural abilities in extraordinary metamorphosis. Nylena's extremities look normal on dry land, but once in water, their hands and feet are webbed, and the back of the arms and legs extend into fins. The color of their skin is like ours, but has a bluish-green tint and highlights. Nylenas are excellent in camouflaging against the coral, rocky reefs, seagrass beds, coastal bays, and areas with sandy bottoms. You could be swimming next to one and never know it. These elves can stay underwater for 60 to 90 minutes before ascending for air, and their heartbeat slows down and oxygen is processed differently in their lungs. Regardless of the water temperature, they maintain a stable internal temperature. It does not affect their body if they're swimming the warm tropical coast of South America or the freezing waters of the northern Atlantic. They are capable of staying out of the water for days, even weeks, as long as they are close to any body of water and can submerge for a few minutes a day. But their body is acclimated and more at home in the ocean. The aquatic elves' presence plays an important role in the underwater ecosystem. They serve and work to keep the seas and rivers a safer place for all its inhabitants. They appreciate and respect all sea creatures, even the more hostile residents such as sharks, understanding how each species plays a role in the delicate ecological equilibrium of the ocean. And here's a beautiful picture. Our sea elf. The paintings in here are gorgeous, and if you just love looking at beautiful pictures, just kind of inspire you, it's enough to buy it just for the actual paintings. But then she goes into a couple different types of sea elves, and I would bet, just intuitively, I think that the Syrians, since they came from the Lyrans, the Lyran constellation is far more older than Sirius and Pleiades, I do believe that there is some serious type of connection to the water elves. Tolkien seemed to understand that too. Sirius it appears in his stories as Sirion, the river Sirion, and that is the most loved stream, or it's the most loved river of Ulmo, the water Valar. And it is the river that actually leads into some of these hidden elven realms. And I think that Sirion was connected to Sirius, and I think that the star Sirius has always symbolized water gods or water, even from ancient Greece. And I mean, it's always been related to the Nile actually rising and allowing for their harvest to take place. So Sirius, I think, has some influence with these water elves. She does not talk about Sirius. It's more about the Pleiades, but I think that was just something intuitively I just wanted to add for those that feel a connection to Sirius, as I do too. I do feel that I do have some part of connection to Sirius as well, because we are multidimensional and we have so many different lives and incarnations. And so if you feel one star system is your home, then that's what you focus on. If you feel more than one star system is your home, then you are embracing more of a complex identity to you. And either one you choose is fine, because it's just all about your personal experience in life and how you wish to experience yourself, your self-identity, and what you are becoming or evolving to as a creator being. The next elf is the fire elves, the Nachikita elves. Nachikitas are another subspecies of the elves. When they arrived on Earth, they chose the warmer regions of our planet, residing beneath the surface of volcanic lands. Most fire elves live in underground cities close to volcanoes, but some are in other regions of our planets. Since Nachikitas are the fire elves, they are also known as the Lords of the Flame. The majority of these elves have fiery red hair and captivating bright green eyes. Besides all the basic abilities elves possess, they can also dominate and control fire. Scalding heat does not affect their bodies. Fire elves can excite atomic and subatomic energy levels within an element or an object and set it on fire. With the same ease they create the fire, they can diminish or eliminate its force. They can handle and manipulate fire with their bare hands and change its form and direction, or shoot it towards the enemy like a cannonball. These elves have a very strong masculine yang-type energy. They are not as placid and even-tempered as the wood and aquatic elves. Testing fire elves' patience is not wise. They can be very serene, but their flaming red hair matches their blazing personality when tampered with. Fire is a very powerful element, and they consider it the source of passion, life, inspiration, dignity, warmth, strength, and above all, valor. By the same token, it represents destruction, death, and resurrection. There are more warriors in this subspecies of elves than any other. They are not warmongers and try to avoid confrontation at all costs, but if attacked, they will defend their kin. With the help of wood elves, these fire elves will start small controlled fires in the forests, eliminating the old dead shrubs to refurbish and replenish life back to nature. So there we have it, the fire elves, and I will share this beautiful painting. I love this image. So now we're going to get into dragons, which I want to put this out there because Tolkien describes his dragons in his stories as those that are bred for war. That is not all dragons, but that dragons do have that element to them where they can represent the greed or the destruction. They can represent that, but on the other side, a dragon can also have wonderful qualities, and this is where they become allies with elves and partners with them in many ways. Dragons and elves. Dragons and elves are the best of terms and have interacted for millennium. The origin of dragons began with the origin of the elves here on Earth. They brought the first eggs, hatched, and cared for them as one of their own. The foundation pretty much explains the friendship and closeness between dragons and elves. Contrary to all legends or stories told, dragons are very benevolent and gentle creatures. They only turn malicious and cunning while guarding their nest or to the wicked intruder seeking their eggs. Not all dragons possess wings, but all are excellent swimmers. They live in caves, mountains, rivers, lakes, oceans, and swamps, and many species of dragons have lived in different regions of our globe and have adapted themselves to survive. Different species of dragons have a different build, personality, and attribute, but dragons are not fond of extreme cold weather. Therefore, you will seldom find them in the colder regions. So she talks about there's aquatic dragons, there's fire dragons, there are forest dragons, and she talks about the different dragons. Now, dragons are very different than the degenerate reptilian humanoid species of reptilians that the Pleiadians have been battling and have been trying to liberate humanity from, their influence in many ways. And I think that we are absolutely liberating ourselves from them. I mean, just the sheer amount of awakenings that are happening, it shows that, we definitely are defeating them. But the reptilians represent degenerate humans. Think about this way. The reason why the Pleiadians even give us the messages about the reptilians and why that has even been in the human collective is a warning to humans to know that that is a pathway that humans can evolve into if they become very cold-blooded towards one another, and if they have a warring, draconic type of nature towards each other, and if they put the wrong type of priorities, they could evolve into that. And that is what happened. And that's what that degenerate reptilian race is. It's a regression of the human race. Everything that makes humans beautiful, they've lost because they have focused on the wrong things, and they have evolved into that. They become very power hungry and dominating, and they have destroyed planets, they've destroyed homes, and they have been very selfish, trying to harvest resources for themselves, and then they move on to another planet. These humanoid reptilians are not the dragons that she's talking about. She's talking about the mythical dragons of fairy, the ones that we know that are benevolent creatures and that are wise, and that they themselves are guardians of Earth in many other ways too. And they could have come from the Draco constellation. I absolutely do believe that the Draco constellation, it is extremely old as Lyra constellation, and I believe that there was some type of break off, like the elves, a subspecies evolution where humanoid reptilians decided to be power hungry and dominate the universe and try to control other planets. So they're kind of like space pirates in a way, and that's what we have been warned about. And it's more, the deeper message is a warning for humanity to know that we can evolve to that. If we're not conscious and aware of how we treat one another or treat the world and nature and all its beings, if we forget some of the vital universal truths that are found within nature about harmony, cooperation, love, equality, and symbiosis and symbiotic relationships with one another, if we forget that, that's when we could regress into that path. But I'm not too afraid of that. I think that we have definitely overcome that challenge in many ways. I think that there still is a possibility for some humans to go that route, and I am just sending them love and hoping that, that they too will awaken as all is one. And so that's what we can do. We could just keep sending people our love and our understanding and our patience, and these people will awaken. The ones that we feel in society are kind of holding humanity back by their behaviors and by their denial of a lot of spiritual things. Keeping patient, keeping kind and loving, and you will start to see these people will join us and will awaken as well. I do believe that, but it is ultimately their choice. So there is a warning that is a very real possible reality, as points of time of space basically can be entered into with a focus. And if we lose our way, we could go down that path. But that is why the elves have come to remind us once again of our actual potential and where we can go with this human species and not go down that route and not become degenerate reptilian type of lizard people. Okay, Asha Ice Elves. The Asha Ice Elves are really beautiful here. There's a nice picture here. This man looks so familiar to me. I don't know. I just feel like I've known him in my past. I think she captured that energy really well. So the Asha Ice Elves. Asha Ice Elves live exclusively in the colder regions of our planet, the North Pole, and are the kings and queens of the ice. Not only are they the keepers of the planet's two poles, they are also considered to be the shamans of the Elvish world. So they're in Antarctica and the Arctic Circle. No matter what species of elves roams the earth, they are stunning and beautiful, but the beauty of an Asha elf is unique and uncommon. They even stand out among their own kin. Both female and male have very light blue or white hair with captivating blue, gray, or green eyes. They are extremely slender and tall, taller than the average elf, and the color of their skin is exceptionally pale. But the unique thing about them is that they can mimic anyone's physical appearance, mutating themselves and go unnoticed in any situation. Their demeanor is mild, even-tempered, and peaceful, and their inner peace and tranquil personality is always reflected in their gentle gaze. They have never been involved in any wars, and nothing disturbs their serenity and calm nature. But don't ever underestimate the power of these gentle souls. This angelic-looking race is very powerful and dominates all the paranormal powers that elves possess and more. The Ashas have been a very big influence on the rest of the species, never using these exceptional powers for personal benefits, but have become the peacekeepers of the Elvish world. The first to ever arrive and adapt in these intimidating polar regions was Catan. He is one of the most powerful shamans and one of the oldest living elves who first arrived on Earth. With Darpak, the lack of inhabitants in these freezing regions made the transition so much easier for him, and gradually a few bold elves followed him to become the new citizens of the poles. Since the gateway up to other dimensional and parallel worlds is located at the North and South poles, Catan felt that he needed to migrate to these regions to be able to fully protect and control these portals. And it's true, like if you see pictures from Google Earth around the Antarctic or the Arctic Circle, in the coldest regions, you will see like pyramid structures or building type structures that are buried underneath the snow. And it's absolutely evidence that we have had some other types of species that have been living in those regions for quite a long time. So I think that she's definitely tapping into that, because intuitively I have felt that. And I think I even wrote about the snow elves in my videos about the different types of elves. I've tapped into the different elementals that she tapped into. And one thing I said was that the snow elves were known to help travelers that, human travelers that get lost in the drifts, and so that I think is very aligned to what she's talking about. Catan is a time and dimensional traveler. He has the ability to cross from one parallel universe to another, communicating with other forms of life roaming our universe. He has the understanding that good and evil are not only the residents of planet Earth, but there are negative and positive forces beyond our celestial borders that can reach the planet through the poles. So there is a wormhole. There's a type of portal in which that is where we have negative and positive types of extraterrestrial visitors coming in. And that is where I've absolutely experienced them coming in. In fact, in the book, The Elves from Canada, How the Pleiadians Taught Me How to Live, Love, and Laugh Again, that book is a Kindle book that you can find on Amazon, and it talks about the battle between the Pleiadians living in a peaceful, kind of secret, secluded forest in Canada, and the reptilians are also hunting them. And the reptilians live around there too, because they came from that portal from that North Pole. And so that's that connection there. And this is why we have the extraterrestrials like coming into the world. They slip in very easily. And so he's saying that that's where the interdimensional portal is located there, which makes a lot of sense. It is where most humans would never see them coming in, and never ever see them, because most of us do not live in those colder regions. These gateways are also the communication channels to other forms of life within our galaxy, the Milky Way. Any elf with the ability to travel through time and space has to pass through these gateways. No one will cross without the consent of the Asha Elves, and thus they keep our planet safe. Catan's other exceptional faculty is his multidimensional mind. He can present in many different times, spaces, and frequencies at the same time and be fully functional in all of them, channeling his amazing mind and soul through multiple physical holograms that function perfectly, applying diverse tasks. Catan and Asha Elves have mental bonds with all elves around the world. These magical beings take and give the secrets of all paranormal powers to whom they please. Nothing ever escapes their vision, and their gift of foresight has been a great guidance to the Elvish community around the globe. They believe every living thing, including elf or human, vibrates at different frequency levels. These frequencies are generated by the purity of the heart, soul, and emotional and mental state of the mind, and these vibrations may be high, low, or even sinister. There are many parallel universes and dimensions that are also influenced by the same laws, and they may vibrate in low frequency, being malevolent, or high, being wholesome and pure. Many humans have reached a higher spiritual level and have learned to mentally travel through these portals. They can access these portals through meditation and reaching other dimensions with the power of their mind, and according to their own frequency can attract entities of the same sequence. These seekers can communicate with grand and pure entities and bring back life-giving and wonderful ideas that can help the planet become a better place, or one that could bring back hostile or destructive parasitic spirits, infecting the planet with an astral parasite, and lower the emotional vibration of a planet already in distress and chaos, so that Asha Elves safeguard these gateways. Throughout history, many elves of all species have sought the wisdom and the magical powers of the Asha Elves. Very few have been invited to the poles to endure a journey of harsh and unbearable trial and be accepted among the elite souls to inhabit the secret world of this incredible and magical race. Not all elves are fit or born to tolerate the freezing and inhospitable regions of planet Earth. Many challenges are set before them. Some of the toughest is being left in freezing temperatures in their bare skin for days without food or water to learn self-control, and abandonment of the physical body to acquire spiritual strength, learning to dominate fears of death, to reach inner peace, tranquility, and respect for all living things, which is the core value of an Asha Elf. And that is just the tip of the iceberg. Over the millennia, less than a few hundred elves have reached the goal of joining the Ashas. They had to mutate and transform their entire biological entity become an Asha Elf. One of the signs of progress is the changing of the color of their hair, which gradually changes to dark blue and then completely white with blue highlight. Once they are in, there is no going back. Their bodies mutate and their souls have forever altered and become shamans. The illnesses of this world does not affect their perfect biological being, consuming very little food and maximizing whatever nutrient they use to its full potential. The few humans who have achieved the spiritual growth and faculties to travel to other dimensions have spoken of mind-boggling images of incredible beings with light blue hair glittering in tunnels of light. This is why I always want blue hair. Their striking beauty is accompanied by an amazing brain power, being the only Elvish subspecies to use 100% of their brain. The Asha Elves do not consider themselves to be extraordinary and believe the power is there to take for all that are willing to take the journey, but most of us live our lives in the repetition thought patterns day after day, worrying about trivial issues, having the power of the sun in our hands and only using a candle. Ooh, I like that. Having the power of the sun in our hands, but only using a candle. That's good. And thus never dipping into the depth of our full brain power and spiritual potential. Ashas have learned to dominate the element of air by communicating and learning from the deity and the spirit of ether. They also control the element of water, making them one of the most powerful elves. So she goes into that a little bit more. I was just going to give you a quick read on the door wax, the spirits of discordia. So she also was able to learn from Catan about some of the negative entities, but there is a weapon against them, so I will not leave you in a negative place. When elves came to the planet, they realized there were demonic spirits roaming the earth, and they have grown in numbers since a few centuries ago and have discovered that these spirits are actually created from the unbalanced energy of humanity. We are all made of energy, every part of us. Everything we do, everything we say, think, or feel generates some form of energy, and these particles of energy float around us. It is in our homes, where we work, roaming in our busy streets, and in the atmosphere of our planet, bonding together and attracting particles of their own kin. From the beginning of time, mankind has felt positive energy such as love, kindness, and compassion, and also the negative ones such as anger, envy, greed, fear, hatred, and revenge. All these feelings generate different particles of energy. None of these particles are the same, nor do they vibrate on the same frequency level. For example, love and hatred have never been on the same side of the spectrum. One is positive, pure, and life-giving, while the other is destructive and harmful. Negative emotions release an unstable particle of energy. By the law of physics, nothing disappears, but transforms. These subatomic particles adhere to each other, and if there are enough of them around, benevolent spirits are born, and these spirits are called the Dorwalks. They have humanoid shapes since they are the result of our own feelings, actions, and thoughts, and are absolutely a horrifying image. There are no limits of boundaries for the sinister and malevolent influence, and they can appear in any place at any time, seeking to energize their strength by sucking ours. They strengthen their energy by feeding on humans' emotional distress. They are the psychic vampires that you may have experienced in your life. I know I have. But there are ways to form a shield around them, and I will go through that more and more on my channel, because that is the ultimate goal, is to really rise above even these beings that have been created from all of the past actions of humans in an unconscious state. We need to move past that and move into a whole new dimension of reality. So we'll talk more about that, but I will give you some clue here. They are dark in color. Sometimes their presence alone produces a foul odor, and they are considered the bacteria and germs of the spiritual world. They are the major cause of physical distress, pain, confusion, and mental disorder. And there are 6 different types of door walks. So she goes into them. There are different demons that she painted showing the different energies that they represent. So there's one that's created by hatred, one that's created by greed, one created by fear, one created by envy, one created by anger or wrath. And here it is. Elves have always struggled to eliminate these spirits. But as humanity's technology grows, its spirituality diminishes, and compassion and gregarious sense of brotherhood are also decreased, allowing doorwalks to rule our planet and making the elves' mission more difficult. Humanity has always had the weapon to annihilate doorwalks completely. Love, kindness, compassion, humility, and service to others have been the best arms against these malevolent spirits. But we are not aware of this insight, and we do not realize these monsters who live among us are created by our own harmful and destructive emotional energy. So keep that in mind, that every time you have some kind of negative emotion, catch yourself in the act and say, I do not want to create a doorwalk on Earth, one that the elves will have to battle. So wonderful book. What I absolutely love about it is that you can have this in your library and you can have some really deep information, I think energetic information, that goes almost into the quantum physics world. I mean, it talks about particles and the way that energy moves. It's a great reference to have. Now, intuitively, I think I have aligned with Razi, as I have felt that part of elven wisdom would be quantum physics, to understand the quantum world. Because when we understand the quantum world, we understand how energy transfers and how energy works, and how things are created out of thin air, or things are made to grow better because of our thoughts. And the power of the consciousness is truly the power of the universe. And once we realize that, and we really get a hold of our minds, and we're no longer in a place of self-doubt, and we really believe in ourselves, and we believe in others, and we believe in our ability to create and recreate, then there is no limitation to our power and where we can go from there. So I am on her team with trying to help humanity become Earth Guardians and receive the wisdom of the elves. And hopefully now you have gotten another perspective of the Pleiadians and see a whole other type of subspecies that has been genetically enhanced with a humanoid form and more of a mammalian, elven type of form that they represent. And they have been around with us for millions of years. And so feel their presence within our world. And I think that can help you. And they seem like they have the spirit that you could reach out to them and they can give you that comfort that you need and that you're looking for. So I hope that you enjoyed this, and I do hope that you get a chance to get this book. I think that it is one to treasure and to have, especially if you have resonated with the spirit of the elves as well as the Pleiades and felt that kind of connection there, along with Sirius because of the water element, but it's not really mentioned because she more focused on the Pleiades. But I do believe that anybody who loves the elves and just wants to remember the wisdom that's within you already, that you know, but you just need that reminder sometimes about yourself and about the world, then it's a great book to have. I think that it's really beautiful. So I'm happy to get it out there on YouTube and give a review so more people can get a hold of it. So I'm happy that you guys stopped by. Thank you so much. I can't wait to take a look at your comments. And I will see you all on the next video. Happy Arbor Day. I think this was a good book for that, to remember to replant our trees that we take from. And, you know, we use so much of our trees, but we have to remember that we have to give back. Trees are absolutely there for us to use, but we do have to replenish them. And it's that spirit of balance that we must always remember. And I think that the Elven wisdom is about that. So just remember that today, and hopefully maybe you can donate to onetreeplanted.org. I really like using that website. So if you can give a couple dollars, you can plant some trees today in honor of Arbor Day, or use whatever website that you would like, or plant your own tree like I was able to. So definitely, I will see you on the next video, and we will go more into some Elven wisdom. And also I have a live video coming up about Michael Moore's new film on green energy. And we will discuss that more, and where I see and have future visions of our energy and what we really need to do for humanity, because there are some concerns about green energy. So I did want to talk about that and help people understand that, because I get really clear visions of our future. And I would like to share that with you all so that you know that we are not doomed, not at all, not by a long shot, as long as we believe it. So Namarie, and I'll see you all in the next video. Have a great night.